folks, welcome back. This is Andy with Elliot.
Hey, y'all.
And this is the Poor Proles Almanac. We are starting up a new series in this episode, so you guys are in for some really interesting conversations. For those of you that are new, if you want to support what we're doing, you can go check us out on Patreon. We also have an Instagram, Facebook, and a Discord. So if you'd like to chat with us and other like-minded folks, go check out the Discord. This new series is going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We're going to be talking with a bunch of experts in various fields, and we're going to kind of pair those up in a unique way. This is all framed around the series title, the Conversazione, and it's considered a social gathering held by the learned or art society for conversation and discussion, especially about the arts, literature, medicine, and science. This term has been around for a couple hundred years. It's been understood as a way for people to learn new things through conversations with specialists, and it's usually through a mixed audience, so a mix of amateurs and experts, males and females. The idea was to give two-way interactions for participants, experiments, demonstrations, displays of equipment, and the exhibition of specimens of various animals. So this was traditionally used as a tool to make science and the arts and all of these things more accessible to people that otherwise might not be aware of them or not, dismissive of new knowledge because of the fact that it flies in the face of something they might have otherwise thought.
It sounds like show and tell.
A little bit, yeah. The idea was to bring everyone together to understand some of these things that are common goods, whether, again, that's through medicine or just giving people general access to things like literature.
What time was this first report came out? 18-something?
Early 1800s is the first time that this term was ever written down.
When was the Enlightenment?
Yeah, the Enlightenment started in the 1700s, the early 1700s, and this might have been a function of it, and it was never written or recorded until later on. And there probably are documented examples, but we just don't know them, or they're buried in some academic's paperwork.
We haven't found them.
That we haven't found.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If anybody finds any, bring them up. That'd be cool to see.
Yeah, and the idea essentially is that our goal with this series was to really make the knowledge of these various specialists accessible, and even if they weren't from other leftists, that we could say there are good pieces of knowledge that we can apply and collectively agree are good for society. And that's part of what we're trying to do, is frame up this conversation where we can start to see the good things we can do together. And again, one of the things we constantly harp on is that our goal isn't to just make a world that only, anarchists or whoever, that's my vision of the world and I only want to work with other anarchists or anything like that. That's not how the world works. So we're not trying to do that. You're not going to convince all your neighbors to become anarchists just because you think that's the best system. And part of being an anarchist is not wanting to force your own beliefs on somebody else, just like you wouldn't want it done to you.
True.
So that's kind of the idea behind this series, is that we're going to try to bring some of these different pieces of information. And sometimes, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, the conversations didn't really go the way we had expected, but there was still a lot of really great knowledge to glean from those conversations.
The direction that we took these conversations, we had a framework in mind of how we wanted these episodes to go, like Andy had mentioned before. And I guess we'll just sort of go through that right now. Yeah, let's parse it out. Let's talk about it.
So we really have 5 clusters of types of episodes in terms of content area and kind of a flow to how those go together. So hopefully as you listen, as the series comes out, and this series is going to come out really quickly, the episodes we've been dropping up until now have been every 10 days or so. Up until next fall, we're going to be dropping an episode every week, every Sunday night, at least here in Eastern Standard Time. And that's going to, they're all pretty good episodes, is what we've been working on in the background. And part of that is because we've got some other stuff coming up for you guys that's not podcast related this summer. So if you guys have been following us on Instagram or Patreon or Discord, you guys should be pretty excited for some of the stuff we're going to be doing. For this series, the first 4 episodes are really focusing on food systems and community and how those things tie together, and how decentralized, locally driven and locally guided food systems based on the resources available provide the best means forward for sustainability and to make better systems for everyone and more efficient systems for that matter. So that series is focused on food systems in a number of different ways. From there, we're going to be jumping into a conversation about what it means to both have access to knowledge and what it means to utilize horizontal, volunteer, affinity group type systems where people can dedicate themselves to what they value in order to provide for the public good. And some of the colonialist ideas that really frame up the idea of ownership, especially when it comes to things like intellectual property.
Yeah, this is our knowledge is for everyone section.
Absolutely.
Like I said, like we said, the conversations, we didn't really know how they were kind of going to come out because I don't know if I've ever interviewed anybody other than for like small, like part-time job stuff. You know what I mean? So
other than Malik.
Other than Malik, right.
Yeah.
Can't forget about Malik.
Yeah.
I was a little bit starstruck on that one too. So
yeah.
So they came out interesting, but I was excited to do that part of the series because we got to talk about some of the invisible ceilings and glass ceilings and invisible walls that are up around information and knowledge and access to it,
and where they came from.
Right, and where they came from, and how because they're so hard to see, it's hard to knock them down. So we were excited about that one.
Yeah, and from there we transition into the utilization of that knowledge, specifically around the idea of craft and the role of craft in the modern world, and whether or not the idea is to go back completely to the craft mercantilist mentality, or if there's some kind of middle ground between craft and industrialization. From there, we jump in a little bit into a series of episodes where we talk about the concept of utilizing that knowledge and that craft into the idea of self-determination around the ability to work and the ability to provide basic medicinal care. So that'll be a really interesting way to look at how these different worlds kind of come together.
So we're doing this episode so that you'll keep this conversation in mind, the flow of these conversations, to help better digest and understand what was in our mind when we had each interview.
You know, a lot of these conversations, we had an idea of what they would be like, and they kind of go in a different direction sometimes, but sometimes that's a really good thing. And that brings me to our last collection of interviews that we did, and that's around the idea of collapse in climate change. And I guess circling back to the beginning of all of this, where we have focused this entire podcast on what comes after, for these last episodes, we instead start talking about the conditions we're in today and how those will inform what we're going to have to do in the future. Because as much as we think we know what comes, there's so many pieces that can change, you know, the end game in the future. And whether we're talking about what the climate looks like, whether we're talking about the geopolitical relationships, the way we think about how climate change plays out itself in terms of what our reaction is and how that further impacts how climate change occurs across the planet. Those conversations are really interesting because they tie much more closely to the world we live in today versus some kind of abstract idea of the future that we want. It's an interesting way to end the conversation and to really try to tie all of these things together. I don't think we can overstate the importance about thinking about how these pieces, as much as we might not want to talk about things like American politics or whatever, those are the reason we're where we are today. And if we don't talk about them because we think there's no point, then how do we know what to expect?
True. And again, this all comes from knowledge and knowing where you come from to understand, like you just said, where we're going. So we pieced together this information as best we could. We had a great time having on some amazing, very smart guests. We got to talk to some really cool people. And is there anything else that you wanted to?
No, I think that really highlights everything. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this series. I know if you're tuning in and you're expecting a full episode, I apologize. This is just a quick drop in the bucket just so you guys kind of know what you're in for.
Yeah, this whole thing was literally... Yeah, I'm going to use the word literally because I mean it. This whole episode literally was just an appetizer to keep in mind as we go through these episodes. We don't want it to sound like these conversations aren't connected in some way. We wanted to show you our mindset and the thread that does connect these conversations and how we're trying to set ourselves up for success in the future.
Hopefully you guys enjoy this. Please let us know. Give us a review on iTunes. If you really appreciate it, go throw us a couple bucks on Patreon, which gives you access to all of the interviews, well, at least extended clips from all of the interviews, as well as a 22-part series at this point for the prologues, which is us having similar conversations that are a little bit less formal.
We're not interviewing anybody. It's just us pontificating, which is
Pretty
a great
much.
word.
Yeah, there's that. And also, if you want to support us on Venmo, we also created I think it's called a Ko-Fi or a Ko-Fi. I'm not actually 100% sure, but we are on there now.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Coffee?
You
made a coffee?
So, funny enough, I think that's the idea. It must be coffee then. Because if you go on and you donate money on it, if you donate, I think it's $3, it's treated as you bought somebody a coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So that would make a lot of sense if they called it coffee. Look at me, deductive reasoning. So proud
I
of
don't even know
myself.
what you're talking about. I'm glad I helped though. We made a coffee today.
Yeah, so we have a coffee or a Ko-Fi. I'm doubting myself. But
Ecosystem.
why do you have to bring that up?
Because it's funny. You don't even remember how you said it the first time.
Was it ecosystem?
No, it was ecology.
Ecological?
Ecological? Which one was it?
I don't know. You're just being mean.
This is awesome. I'm having so much fun.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. So, yeah, we've got a really great series. We've been working on it all summer or all spring, and we're really excited for you guys to hear it. So, again, if you like it, show us some love on iTunes. Join us on Discord.
Give us those reviews. We need those reviews.
Yeah, go follow the people that we interview or buy their books and all that other good stuff because they're all amazing. And until next time.
Enjoy us flapping our gums.
Yeah.
This is Elliot.
And this is Andy.
And this is the Poor Proles Almanac.